Okay, I previously on this channel made a video where I showed some of the newspapers that my mom collected from the 2004 Summer Olympic Games. I'll link to that video in the video description if I'm feeling ambitious. Otherwise, it's a bit of a scavenger hunt. They were the Seattle Times newspapers. This video is about me, Tanis Leonhardi, she, her, hers of Seattle. I'm filming this Friday, 22 March 2024, and it is about my favorite of all the broadcasts of the Olympic Games growing up. When I was growing up, there was the Canadian channel, and there were a bunch of different American channels that broadcast the Olympic Games. It wasn't kind of muzzled down to one network only. So we had options. And so which of the options was my favorite broadcast? And so there were, and it was, let's explain the environment a little bit of having multiple American broadcasters of the Olympic Games. It was fabulous. They didn't all choose the same sports, and I liked watching a bunch of sports. I learned that people who spectate certain sports won't spectate any other sport, right? So some people might win a bunch of medals in one sport and be like most decorated at the Olympic Games, but that doesn't mean that person has any notability in the wrestling community, for example. And so it was kind of fun to be able to, I was the kind of person who enjoyed watching more than just one sport. And as such, I like to be able to, well, it's beach volleyball now, and I don't really want to watch beach volleyball. Let me go over here and it's the marathon or something, right? I could change sports, or it's canoeing or kayaking or whatever it is, a slalom canoeing kind of thing. And so I could flip around and have different options. It was fun if there were local people. They do interviews with local people depending on what it was. My favorite, however, was local news agency Cairo 7 News, which is probably the branch of something else. Was Cairo 7. Not to be confused with Kylo Ren, Cairo 7. Did they get that name from our news broadcaster over here in Seattle? And I loved it. It was the only channel that I thought did a truly spectacular job, or broadcaster, of doing a spectacular job of treating the people who competed at the Olympic Games as human and highlighting them in a manner that showed both kind of their athletic side and their non-athletic side, and they didn't feel the need to kind of blur that line. Yeah, they were the only ones. Como 4, I think, was one. Como 4 News was one which is, neither of those are NBC in the United States. In King County, King 5 is a branch of NBC. So Cairo 7 News, not NBC, and Como 4 News, not NBC. Those were my top two, aside from the Canadian channel, which was always better than the Americans because I could see people other than the Americans. It's like, it's a international global competition. Why are we only seeing Americans? Kind of thing. And why are the commentators from King 5 slamming everybody else and trashing them, trash talking them? Like, other channels, please. Now those broadcasts are currently being oppressed, those broadcasters, from actually broadcasting at the Olympic Games. So I hope in the future broadcasting of the Olympic Games returns to its golden standard, not high quality, at least higher quality than it is these days, which is just NBC. But anyways, so the favorites there were Cairo 7 News and Como 4 News, and if I'm feeling ambitious, I'll look up what the parent broadcaster agency is for those. But they did a really good job of filling in the story of people who competed and making sure not to blur lines. They were ethical, whereas NBC was not. And I was like, dang it. I remember watching them and being like, dang, it would suck if we got stuck with NBC. And then that's what ended up happening. And I'm like, I'm not going to watch the Olympic Games anymore. And I haven't. Not like I used to anyway. The only one that I've watched since that takeover was the 2020 Summer Olympic Games, and I stopped watching because the broadcasts were so bad. In part. So there we go. Yeah. Now you know. If you wanted to know my perspective, and the perspective it always was, Cairo 7 News and Como 4, not NBC.